It's 3 a.m. in New York, 8 in London, and 4 on a Friday afternoon here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gun-young. We continue our special coverage on the search and rescue efforts to find survivors in the sunken ferry off Korea's southwestern coast. Now, we earlier delivered the news that the South Korean rescue team had successfully entered the hull of the capsized Sewol-ho ferry for the first time. The government now says the attempt was a failure. For more details, we'll go straight over to our Hwang Sung-hee at the Central Disaster Safety Headquarters in Seoul. Sung-hee, it seems like we've been getting conflicting reports all day long. What is this that we're just learning of?
That's right, Kanyang. Disappointing news. Officials at the Central Disaster Safety Headquarters say their earlier announcement that the rescue team successfully secured the route to the cafeteria of the capsized vessel was inaccurate. It had said that the rescue team installed 3 guidelines that can reach the cafeteria and that divers would begin full-scale rescue operations beginning at 3 p.m. Korea time today, which was about an hour ago. Following the government's announcement this morning, a Coast Guard official said that it was true that 8 divers entered the ship for the first time, but hesitated to call it a successful entry because not enough air was pumped in at the time. The official corrected that, yes, they did enter the ship, but it should not be called a successful entry. Experts say this means rescue efforts could be back to square one. But meanwhile, we got another update. We just got that around 3:40 p.m., which was about 20 minutes ago, 2 marine divers actually succeeded in entering the ship, again, the second floor of the vessel. So we will have to keep an eye on that as well. But I will try to get more details on that in our next newscast for this story. Back to you, Tanya.
Right, definitely so. And regardless of whether it has been successful or not, the fact is that these divers are continuing their attempt to enter the submerged vessel. Now, more than 2 days have passed since the Sewol-ho ferry capsized, Sung-hee, and additional bodies are being recovered at the site, but really no news of any more survivors.
That's right. The bodies of 2 male students were recovered about 500 meters away from the capsized vessel earlier this afternoon. This comes after the body of a middle-aged man who was wearing a life jacket was recovered in the morning, putting the total confirmed death toll at 28. 12 bodies have been confirmed as being high school students, 2 teachers, 3 crew members, and 1 passenger. 10 bodies have yet to be identified, but 7 of them are believed to be high school students. 268 people still remain missing, and unfortunately, the number of survivors remains unchanged. Kanyang?
All right, we'll be looking forward to some positive and good news out of that front. Thank you for that update, Sung-hee. That was our Hwang Sung-hee reporting from the Central Disaster Safety Headquarters in Seoul. Let's now go live to Paengmok Harbor on Jindo Island, just 20 kilometers from the site of the search and rescue mission. Our Kwon So-ah connects live with us. So do fill us in with the current situation there.
Kanyang, as the hours pass by, hope is fading. Now, a temporary morgue has been set up here at Paengmok Harbor as more and more bodies are being recovered. Now, meanwhile, as for the Sewol-ho ferry, which has been said to have disappeared out of sight a few hours ago, now it is said that it has not sunk entirely, but it is just below the surface. And unfortunately, it seems that the death toll will rise further, and with that, the situation here is getting more and more tense. Now, the families that have come to the site here at the harbor are watching over the rescue process with their own eyes. I heard them crying and praying in front of the waters, and also expressing their frustration and anger towards the government due to the slow rescue process, and also towards reporters shouting, "Stop filming."
Right. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what the harrowing times that these families are going through. Now, so after the search for the survivors ends, what's the next step going to be for the rescue operations?
Well, discussions are going to continue on how and when to pull out the ferry. And around an hour ago, the 4th crane has arrived here at Paengmok Harbor. And in addition to the 4 cranes, Hyundai Samo Heavy Industries owned floating dock will also be included in the process, which will be more effective. Now, experts say the process could take months, but families worry that once the cranes are used and the ferry shifts, possible survivors could die, which means that they are still holding on to the last bit of hope. Now, that's all I have for now. I'll be filling in you with more later on. Kwon-young?
Thank you for that. That was our Kwon So-ah reporting live on the situation from the Pengmok Harbor on Chindo Island. Now, as the hours turn into days, the families of the missing are trying their best not to lose hope and are waiting at an indoor auditorium on Chindo Island for any news about their loved ones. Our Yudian is standing by at the auditorium. Lian, how are things looking like there now?
Hi, Kwon-young. Ever since we received reports that air was being injected into the vessel, the families here have been closely watching the monitors here that show live feeds from the site of accident and news footages as well. Frustrations continue to grow here at the auditorium as families are only left to hear news on the rising death toll. There are a number of Coast Guard officials here who are trying their best to answer the questions that these families of victims have, but they're growing more emotional as more time passes.
Leon, I hear there were some complications down there, families not really getting accurate information on the rescue operation.
You're right. There's been quite a commotion here with parents of the victims taking the mic one by one to express frustration on the lack of transparency into the rescue operations. Earlier this morning, the head of the victims' families here issued a plea statement which was broadcast nationwide, asking people across the country to help them rescue their children. Families here are feeling they need all the help they can get after finding out that the number of rescue personnel announced by the government and the actual number they got is quite different. Now, for the families who have grown weak and distressed from days of waiting, there is a special care center set up here at the gym where nurses and medical personnel are taking care of people and also offering mental help for many that are distraught here at the auditorium. The past 2 nights have been extremely hard for these families of the victims. They have been under an overwhelming amount of stress, and they simply look exhausted as many of them haven't slept much throughout the night. Kwon-young?
All right, we will be looking forward to some good news for the families waiting there in the auditorium. Thank you, Liam, for that report. That was our very own Yudian reporting from Chindo Indoor Auditorium, where many of the family members of the now 268 missing are gathered waiting for news of their loved ones. Meanwhile, investigation on the captain and the crew of the capsized ship continues, and with further details, we are joined live by our Park Ji-won from the ARIRANG News Center. Ji-won, there was a press briefing down in the southern city of Mokpo earlier today. What did we learn?
Yes, Kwon-young, the joint investigation team composed of the nation's prosecutors and police announced their interim report this morning, and it's been confirmed that the ferry's 26-year-old third mate, not the captain, was steering the 6,800-ton ferry when the vessel encountered trouble. She graduated from Mokpo National Maritime University 3 years ago and started working for this company in December, so it has been just around 4 to 5 months. Korean regulations mandate a vessel more than 3,000 tons should be navigated by a first or second mate, and considering that the Sewol-ho ferry weighs more than twice that, it's a clear violation of regulations. Fingers are being pointed towards the captain, who is believed to have been away from the steering room at the time of the incident. However, regarding the exact location of the captain at the time of the crisis, testimonies have been so far differed.
Right. Ji-won, are we any closer to finding out what really caused this humongous ferry to capsize?
Well, Kwon-young, the joint investigation team said they were still looking into the case. They said they had questioned the captain of the ship for 2 separate occasions and that they would file an arrest warrant for the captain later today. Every surviving member of the ferry's crew and top management personnel of its operator, Cheonghaejin Marine, have been banned from leaving the country.
Now, Ji-won, another news is that there have been reports of text messages thought to be from survivors on the capsized ship, but those, just unthinkably, those are found to be pranks.
Yes, those messages gave false hope to the whole nation yesterday, especially the weary families of the missing. So investigators said they would draw up punitive measures against those who are spreading groundless rumors through social networking sites about the accident.
Right, Jiwon, just unimaginable how they would be taking advantage of the people in this time of distress. All right, please do keep us updated. That was our Park Jiwon from ARIRANG News Center. And now we move on to some discussions on the findings and on government reports on this ferry capsize. And we are joined live in the studio by our regular contributor, Dr. Kim Byung-ju. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Now, one question that I have is that there have been conflicting reports. It seems like not one fact announced by the government was correct or precise all day long. Why the conflicting reports?
I would say a key reason is the public pressure here. The whole nation is watching on what these divers are doing at this point, and they have to travel down about like 30 meters down the deep water, and they are facing this visibility that's about 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters, which is just right in front of your eyes. Can't really see things, and this is a huge ship we're talking about. The length is 160 meters, and it's very difficult to figure out where the diver himself is actually at a certain moment, and it's an extremely difficult operation. But the whole nation is watching, and as it has been just reported, the parents of these students, they are issuing statement calling the nation, to help them find their children here. So the enormous amount of pressure itself is playing out. So these operators, the divers and their commanders face enormous pressure. So they seem to be sometimes tempted to overstate some of the points of their arrival when they go down there, and then the operations, description of the operations, they face this pressure to slightly even overstate, and when it goes through the different channels of communication, it could get easily exaggerated. So it's a very difficult challenge that everybody is facing, and I don't think at this point that we should just blame anyone at this particular moment, and we should just try to keep ourselves calm as much as we can.
Right, and focus on the search and rescue operations. Of course, the government officials have been under a lot of pressure to, I suppose, reveal their progress as much as possible.
Right.
That's what they are demanded to do at this point. Now, authorities have said that they have begun pumping air into the vessel, and then we found reports of the vessel being completely submerged.
Right.
Now, we have been getting reports that it may not be the case, that the tip of the ship may still be on the visibility.
Right.
Now, what does that mean?
I don't think we have a scientific evidence here, but there have been speculations about this efforts to pump more air into the vessel may actually make the ship itself more destabilized, and some people have been speculating whether that efforts actually led into the ship itself going under the surface of the water. We need more time to figure out what the facts are, but as you said, I think the consensus is that the ship itself is just right beneath the surface at this point rather than completely sinking. If the ship sinks all the way down to the floor, the gap between the surface of the water and the top of that will be the bottom of the ship that's facing up, will be about 13 meter difference. But at this point, I think the front side of the ship is just just below the surface. So the operation itself has not, I don't think, has dramatically changed.
All right, we will keep our fingers crossed for the search and rescue efforts. Thank you, Dr. Kim, for helping us through this discussion.
Thanks.
Getting a better sense of the situation down in Chindo, including the terrain the rescue teams are dealing with there off Korea's southwestern coast and what might have caused this huge ferry to sink. Now, for that, we have Des Ward joining us via Skype. He is the director of Australian Marine Consultants. Des Ward, thank you so much for joining us.
That's fine.
Now, let's start with the search and rescue operations. What is your assessment of the quality and scale of what we're seeing? I mean, how does it compare with previous operations carried out by other countries?
Look, I think that from what we can see here, to be honest, I think that your authorities are probably doing everything that they possibly can. I'm just not sure that the wider public appreciate the difficult circumstances, the weather, the tides, the currents, the fact that the ship is unlikely to be stable in its current condition, and the difficulty in actually getting inside the ship is it's extremely dangerous, and it will be extremely difficult, and it's not going to happen in a short period of time, I don't think.
It's been over 55 hours now since the accident, and the rescue team has begun pumping air into the vessel. That's the report we're getting, and divers are trying to enter this submerged ferry. How will these two operations help find and rescue survivors?
Look, pumping air in is going to be, it's something that they probably have to try and do, but you have to understand that that inside the ship is, there are corridors, there are cabins. Just pumping air in is not necessarily going to go into any specific place. It's going to be, I imagine it's going to be somewhat hit and miss as to where that air is going to end up. And getting in there, and if there are survivors, I frankly, I doubt that there will be. But the prospect of getting anywhere very quickly, in my view, is quite slim. It's a very difficult operation.
Yeah, we're at this point hoping that there will be survivors inside that vessel there. Now, we're talking about a 6,800-ton vessel. We've been reporting about possible air pockets where survivors may be found. Given the structure of this ferry, how great of a possibility do you think this is? And if so, what are the chances of survival given that it's been more than 2 days?
Look, the structure of the vessel is such that, in my view, the prospect of there being any survivors there living on entrapped air after this period of time, I think, to be honest, is unfortunately slim. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I do believe that it is slim. And the period of time, of course, is of great concern. The water is cold. The circumstances will be very difficult. It will be dark. Even if there are any air pockets, there are all sorts of other factors that medical people can probably help you with more as to whether or not those people are likely to be alive or not, if they are even there in entrapped air.
All right, Des Ward, your organization does salvage and casualty consulting. From your past experience and gathering information that we have so far, do you think you could give us an estimate, a ballpark figure, if you will, on how long this recovery process might take?
Well, when you're saying recovery process, I think you have to appreciate that there are a lot of stages to this. There will be, first of all, there is the emergency rescue process, which is what is being gone through now, and that will take. I don't mean to be obtuse about this, but that will take as long as it takes. I think that from what we can see here, the Korean authorities certainly are throwing everything at it that they can to try and achieve an outcome as quickly as possible. But the circumstances are very difficult, and it's not easy, it's not a simple job, and it's very difficult to put any time frame on it. The later prospect of recovering the ship in its entirety is going to be a long drawn-out operation. As I said this morning, the Costa Concordia took 2 years. I don't believe this will take 2 years, but it will not be hours or days. It will be weeks or months.
Right, and at this point, we are just hoping to find survivors in that submerged vessel. Des Ward, Director of Australian Marine Consultants, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. world is reaching out to Korea during this very, very difficult time. U.S. President Barack Obama offered his deep condolences to the victims of the ferry disaster and pledged Washington's full support for the ongoing search and rescue operations. This during a news conference at the White House on Thursday.
Before I begin, I just want to express, on behalf of the American people, our deepest condolences to the Republic of Korea and the families of all those who've seen their loved ones lost when a ferry sank within the last couple of days. As one of our closest allies, our commitment to South Korea is unwavering in good times and in bad, and that's.
Now, Obama added that he will convey this message in person when he visits Korea for a previously planned trip next week. Earlier, the leaders of China and Singapore echoed his sentiments, expressing condolences to the victims and their bereaved families. Now, just to give you an update, so far we have confirmed 28 deaths from the submerged or capsized ferry, and 268 remain unaccounted for. However, 179 passengers have been rescued, and that on the day of the accident. And they may have survived, but they still need treatment both physically and psychologically. Let's now go live to our Connie Kim, who joins us from the Korea University Ansan Hospital. This is where the largest number of patients are being treated. Connie, before we talk about the survivors, I know more bodies have been brought to the hospital. It must have been an emotional scene. What is the atmosphere there like?
Right, Kanyang. I'm standing in front of the funeral hall of Korea University Ansan Hospital. Now, we haven't been getting any additional deceased passengers this afternoon since we got an additional 2 earlier in the morning. Now, however, but the atmosphere in the hospital is still very distressing and devastating as the cries of the relatives are still being heard inside as we speak right now. A total of 5 of the dead are currently here in the hospital, and the names of the deceased are being shouted out here and there. Parents are crying out loud, hugging each other, some saying that they didn't even have a chance to speak to their own children before the vessel went down. And with endless stream of sobbing friends and families paying their respects at the hospital, Tanwon High School is considering setting up an incense altar within the school or the Ansan Olympic Museum.
All right, Connie, I know that a number of the students who managed to escape the sinking ferry with their lives are also receiving treatment at that hospital. How are they doing?
Well, a press briefing was held earlier at around 12:30 in here, and the director of the hospital said there are currently 76 patients receiving medical treatment. Now, 72 of them from Tanwon High School, along with 1 teacher and 3 other passengers. He said a stress test was conducted on the students and said most of the teenagers are suffering from moderate levels of stress, but declined to mention specific numbers. He also said depending on their mental conditions, they have provided counseling sessions to both parents and students. Officials say there are teenagers with harsh critical conditions who cannot speak at the moment from shock. They said they'll continue to provide help to students and parents and will also cooperate with the education and welfare ministries as well.
Right, I'm sure they need a lot of comfort and treatment at this time. Thank you, Connie. That was ARIRANG News' Connie Kim reporting live from Korea University Ansan Hospital, where many of the injured are being treated. The search for survivors in waters off Korea's southwestern coast continues, and joining us now is Michelle Park for a look at the weather conditions down near Chindo. Michelle, how are conditions looking like in the area right now?
Well, it's still looking gray and foggy in Chindo with a bit of rain coming down now, although the winds have calmed down. The velocity of the tidal currents is estimated at between 1.8 and 10 kilometers per hour. Now, there are 3 times of the day when the slow tides will be coming in, which would help the search and rescue efforts. Now, one of the times already have passed, but there are 2 more coming in, one at 4:29 this afternoon and 20:25 p.m. local time, which will only last for an hour. Now, the water temperature is currently at 11.3 degrees Celsius and similar to yesterday, with winds blowing at 3.8 meters per second, and the height of the waves will be at 1 to 2 meters. Now, we'll continue to look forward to the situation down in near Jindo and just hope for the best. Now, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Kanyang.
All right, thank you, Michelle, for that. And that's all from me at this hour. Our special coverage on the nation's search and rescue efforts for survivors in Korea's ferry disaster continues right here on ARIRANG. Join us again at the top of the hour.